everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Grace Germond, and I am one of the admissions coaches here at iPEC Coaching. Joining me today is Don Whittle from the International Coaching Federation, and we're going to spend about 30 minutes today chatting with you about questions that you might have about the ICF, what that process looks like, and just some other general questions that you might have about coach training. And Don, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and, how you got to the ICF?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Don Whittle, Director of Membership here at the International Coaching Federation. I've been here just over 16 years, and what brought me here was a long, circuitous route through Olympic sports, most notably the U.S. Olympic Committee, where I worked for a period of time. And now I'm here at ICF and really have seen the whole trajectory of the growth in coaching as a profession worldwide, and really excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about it.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little bit about the importance of the ICF and why people should consider if they want to go that route or not as professional coaches?
Sure. And to be clear, so we're the professional association for coaching globally. We have nearly 60,000 members, 50,000 credential holders in over 140 countries. We're a standards organization as well. We've set the standards for a lot of the definitions, if you will, of coaching and about coaching. And we have a credentialing program as well, as I referenced before, with 3 different credentials. We'll talk a little bit about that. And a membership organization as well. And we invite other stakeholders because we have some other parts of the organization, Coaching and Organizations Foundation, Thought Leadership Institute. They're all part of this overall ecosystem of what we call ICF today.
Excellent. I love it. And this is something that we get questions for a lot as admissions coaches. And I think, one of the biggest things that we get is, why go the ICF? So I know what you do as a governing body and a credentialing body, but what are some other benefits that coaches can get if they decide to go and become credentialed?
Sure. And so one thing we do, and we really do it well, is our credentialing program is excellent. As I said, I've been here a long time. I've watched the whole evolution of it and how big it's gotten. But at the same time, the rigor that's involved has really gone and become stronger and stronger. And so the credential is a really solid process for evaluating just a lot about, that you have the core fundamentals of coaching, and, your coaching is falling along the lines of the core competencies, our code of ethics, the definition of coaching. And it's really a powerful demarcation, if you will, of becoming a coach, being a credentialed coach, because it's something no one can take away from you, and you can only progress through the credentialing system if you so desire. But it means that you've studied and completed the rigor to become a credentialed coach, which says a lot.
Excellent. Well, and you know what? I always get questions from people on the differences between being certified and being credentialed. What's your take on that from the ICF perspective?
Yeah. And so I go back to the standards again, and the certification, if you will, is more about we accredit coach training. So there is a certification definition, if you will, and I don't have it right here in front of me, and I should, but it's about the whole overall process of the credential, and the certification or the accreditation that takes place. ICF is in that space as well. We accredit coach training programs that meet our standards. It all falls within that sphere, and being certified means that you are ready to coach, and we just add another layer on here to say, okay, here's an independent credential that you can apply for without any subjective basis of the organization having a hand in certain things, and it's something that's really tangible that you can walk away with as a credentialed coach. And that's all part of the overall certification program, if you will, at ICF.
Well, and I kind of like that too, because I know for us as an organization, it's really important for us to be able to keep our accreditation through you guys. So we know the standards that we have to follow as an organization. And I know that there are different standards that professional coaches have to follow too in order to maintain those. So why recertifying? Like at the end, how come those credentials expire?
Because there's always a level where you want to recertify. You want to make sure you're proving that you're fit for purpose and you can continue to coach at the same level.
Yep.
In that process, recertifying, you're taking professional development and continuing education to keep relevant in terms of everything that's going on coaching wise and how you're coaching clients.
Great. Now we have a great question from Wayne, and I think I want to direct this to you. Are
Sure.
there any other similar organizations, and what are the differences and why ICF? I'm assuming it needs to be over others.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to mention the others. I'll let you look those up, and maybe you have some in mind. But we're different in that we've been around longer, and we certainly adhere to best practices that are going on in terms of doing things exactly like they should be done when you're creating a credentialing program. It is an in-depth program in terms of putting it all together and the verification, validation, et cetera, that goes on behind the scenes to create a credential and make sure it has validity. And I can't talk specifically about other credentialing programs that are in the coaching space because I know a little bit about them, but I'm not skilled enough or well-versed enough in their programs to be able to speak. And I don't want to compare one to another, except to say ours has been around a long time, and we strive for it to be the best credential in the coaching profession.
I love it. And, I think, from being in this chair a long time, there are things that we have to know answers to. So yes, you're absolutely right. There are different bodies that are out there. I think the biggest thing about the ICF versus other credentialing bodies is that the ICF specifically looks at the coach training. They're looking at the coach training and they're looking at the experience hours. Another organization that I'm familiar with, and again, I don't want to mention any names, but they also take into account people's education and not so much the coaching part. Right. So if you want to be a great coach, probably the ICF is going to be your best bet. If not, just Google and see what else is out there to see what one is going to fit your particular needs. Okay. Yeah, now, absolutely. We do have a couple of other questions. What's the cost of the training program for an individual coach? And that one person is anonymous. And I think it's absolutely going to vary based on the program that you're looking at. Ours, if you're looking at the iPEC course, it's $13,995 US, and that is an all-inclusive tuition. And that gets you 3 certifications, and we set you up to be able to go on to the ICF to get the level 2 credential of professional certified coach. And that's actually kind of funny, Don, that I brought that up, because the 3 credentials that you guys offer, what's the difference between them?
So there are at different levels of education, coaching experience. So client hours, there's mentor coaching, there's successful completion of a performance evaluation, what we call the credential exam. And so they're all different levels based on the amount of education that you've completed and your quite frankly, just your coaching experience in terms of hours accumulated with clients, and they scale up from the ACC, which is the intro or the beginning credential, at 60 hours of education, 100 hours of client hours, plus some other requirements as well. The PCC, which is 125 hours of coaching education and 500 hours of coaching experience. And there are other requirements. And if you do take like an iPEC course, like you're talking about, the larger, much larger, most comprehensive one, you won't have to do a lot of these other requirements in terms of mentor coaching and things of that nature. So encourage you, if you're all in, to take a look at a program like what iPEC offers, because it's world-class and it's a real turnkey process into the ICF credential.
Excellent. We've got a lot of questions coming in. And I think it's fantastic. And here's one.
All right.
Irina, thanks for asking. Who and what organizations, who will accept these credentials in order to be employed in various workplaces?
So I will say that more and more, let me just step back here. Coaching is unregulated in the United States and probably most other countries that we're involved in. There are some countries that have some specific regulations on coaches and coaching. However, it's up to the end user, so the client, in terms of who he, she, or they want to hire. But I will say this: we do a lot of studies, and we partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And one particular study is about the awareness of coaching, and I think we haven't done it for a couple of years, but it's like now up to 75% of the world knows what our definition or the definition of coaching actually is, and that from that particular study, people are saying we do know that there is a credential out there, there is a credentialing body out there, and more end users of coaching are asking, are you credentialed, when they're hiring coaches? So that's the big differentiator that I want to underscore here, because that is all independently done. The survey, and I know they've done it a number of years, and it keeps on scoring higher and higher in terms of this whole request by clients that their coach is credentialed.
Yeah. And I think another example, like there's a company out there called Better Up that hires coaches and they provide clients to them. One of their requirements is that coach has to be PCC credentialed with the ICF. So you would really want to take a look at the individual organizations and say, what do they require to hire coaches? Because everyone can set their own rules when it comes to that. Okay. So got a couple of other questions. When would the next course start, and how long is it, and how many times a week do we meet? I think she's asking specifically about the iPEC program. Our next course starts in the fall. So we have a late October date that people can choose from, along with different dates through November. It's broken down into 2 phases. It's about 7 to 8 months for phase 1, and then an additional 3 months for phase 2. We don't really meet on a weekly basis, but our students have to do 3 3-day modules that are spaced about 3 months apart. And I think a lot of that information will be definitely found on our website. But at the end of the program, if you have specific questions about the iPEC course, we'll be happy to schedule some time for you if you haven't already spoken to someone. Okay. So we have another question from James, and I think I want to leave this one to you. Mm-hmm. Have clients, organizations, companies, or individuals asked specifically for ICF credential from coaches? Do you have any experience?
So I'm not going to give away any, I'm not going to quote any corporations, because I don't work closely enough with them to be able to answer that question. But I know, well, let me just say one. It's not not a corporation, but it's part of the federal government, where they only hire coaches who are ICF credentialed, and that's U.S. federal government. I'll leave it there.
Okay. We have a couple more things. After completing the iPEC coaching, what needs to be done on top of that to get ICF credentialed in terms of time, testing, fees?
I'm going to answer that. So
if you want to.
Well, I mean, so if you've taken the level 2 iPEC coaching education and gone through their whole process, you can come through for an ACC credential in a pretty turnkey manner, if you will. It's basically just verifying the experience hours that you have. So the coaching client hours, you've already got the education, mentor coaching, performance evaluation, and have taken the iPEC exam. You're just going to be verified for your coaching experience. And of course, you'll submit your training certification. But it's about a 4-week process for an ACC credential, and you'd have to pass the coaching education exam.
And pay the fee, of course.
Yes, pay the fee. Sorry, as a member, it's $175 US for that
Right.
that application.
Excellent. So we have another question. ICF and iPEC. If we take the iPEC course, are we certified by the ICF? Simple answer to that is no, because iPEC is credentialed by the ICF. So when a student goes through our program, you're getting certified through iPEC. You then have the choice as a professional coach to go to the ICF and you could build your credentials up with them. And that's kind of going back to what Don was just talking about with the different things that you would need to do in order to become credentialed, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Great question. So it's the next one is, and what do you need to do to keep your certification? Okay. How long does it last? Do you need CCEUs?
Yes.
And I think that depends. Right?
You do need CCEUs for that. And it's a 40 hours of continuing education over a 3-year period. And depending on if you're at the ACC level, there are some other stipulations potentially for ACC. But if you've taken the iPEC course, you would have them waived in terms of getting mentor coaching hours. So I'm not going to touch on that. But it's it's about going out and getting continuing education and maintaining your fitness to be coaching. That's really what it's all about. So that's it.
Yep. And I kind of wanted to circle back too, because she specifically said certification. And I want to kind of emphasize that there's a difference between your coaching certification and your coaching credential. So if you get certified by iPEC and you've earned the 3 designations through us, they do not expire. So you don't need to have continuing education. It's more about the credentialing through the ICF that needs to be renewed every 3 years that Don was just mentioning. Okay. So this is an interesting question by Irina. Are there any apps such as the one for psychologists better up? So how to look legit against psychologists? I'm a little bit confused, but like, how would, I'm assuming, a professional coach compare against a psychologist?
So we've got a clear demarcation line that our coaches, well, let me state it this way, that there's a difference between coaching and therapy, if you will. And I'll leave it there. So this is different. Coaching is more, if you look at it, it's more of a current process and looking at the, it's your current, what you're in it to be coached for and what your goals and things are in that space. But so what we're differentiating as coaching is different from therapy, and we have some documents on that on the ICF website explaining the difference there. So just want to be clear there. And I don't know about any apps. I do know there are apps out there for therapy and psychology, but couldn't recite them off the top of my head.
Yeah. And I think too, the biggest difference between being a therapist and a counselor versus being a coach is we're not diagnosing as coaches. Yeah. That's not our job. And if we get to that point where we uncover a problem that is above and beyond that coaching boundary, that's where ethically following the code of ethics and the code of conduct that the ICF has laid out, where we have to stop. And then we have to refer them to the correct people. Okay.
Yeah.
And Irina, yes. So iPEC is actually the coach training program that will allow you to build your certification and earn your certification to then go to the ICF to become credentialed, for sure. Okay. And I think, Jennifer, the question that you asked about what's the general length of time to get credentialed with the ICF, Don mentioned that earlier. It's about 4 weeks. for the ACC. And hopefully that one helps. Okay. And then we have another question. Does the iPEC program cover all ACC requirements with the exception of the experience hours? Answer to that would be yes. And then the fee. So we don't cover the experience hours, although you will get the pro bono requirements in the program. So the experience hours are where you're being paid. Your pro bono hours are where you're doing it for, it's like coaching your peers. And because iPEC doesn't need that as part of our accreditation, we give it to our students to be able to use for theirs if they're going to go that route to the ICF. So we'll give you quite a bit, about 85% to that first credential. Okay. We got another one. What is the requirement to get the ICF certificate? To become ACC, I think 60 hours of coach-specific education.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else? And I think
Mm-hmm.
we kind of just covered that. But Don, if you want to, reiterate those ACC requirements.
Sure, it's 100 hours of coaching experience. If you, for example, did not take the iPEC full course, then there'd be other requirements in terms of mentor coaching and a performance, or actually a performance evaluation, where it'd be a recording of your coaching session that would be scored by an assessor. And then there's the examination process. So it gets to be a little bit, and that process is much longer than 4 weeks. I'm just scrolling down here. It goes out as far as 14 weeks to get through that process. And it's a little bit more expensive as well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the a la carte, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's kind of piecemealing their training together to get them to the goals of becoming credentialed, whereas something like a robust program like iPEC's, we kind of build that all in as part of the tuition. So if you went to go and get your ACC credential, that's why Don was saying all you need to do is upload your certification, because they know what we do as an organization. So it's a lot less work, which I think makes it a much faster process to earn that credential for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we have this next great question. What do I need to do to get PCC credentialed from the iPEC perspective, level 2? So we kind of touched upon that, but it said, I heard from level 2, you get ACC, but that's incorrect. You get PCC. But then it says, can I jump from the ACC to the PCC?
Yeah. So the answer to that is, the quick answer is yes, provided you have the 500 hours of coaching experience and all the other requirements met. I'm assuming you're talking about going through the level 2 program at iPEC. Yes. You'd also have to have the 500 hours of coaching experience, and you'd have to take the examination.
Right. Don, can you jump anymore though? Can you skip the ACC?
You can. Or what you can't do is, if you're going to the MCC, you have to take the PCC first.
Okay. So you can bypass ACC, but you can't bypass PCC. Perfect. Good to know. All right. Thank you for that really great question. So we have another one. What is the coaching exam setup? Is it a case study? Is it multiple choice? So I'm assuming it's the ICF
It's
exam.
multiple choice based on scenario. And if I hang on, I do not want to misquote this. And it's taught. It's all the questions are basically about the core competencies, code of ethics definition, and I want to say it's exam procedures. I should know all this because I hear it all the time. So scenario based, and I want to say, let me just make sure. It goes over all the core competencies, and let's see, I'm seeing sample. And so it is multiple choice, and I'm going to say, I'm not going to, I'll have to put in the chat how many questions it actually is. So it's a 3-hour examination process. My brain goes haywire because I'm doing this other certification through for myself through association executives, and it's 4 hours for the test there. Anyways, it's a 3-hour examination process, all taught in a core. All questions are about the core competencies, code of ethics, and definition of coaching. So. As long as
I've
you take
always
the
heard,
course and take a look at some of the sample questions, I think yeah, you should be able to excel in it.
I think it's great. And every time everybody says that, the one response that they say is, if you go in and you think like a coach, you're going to be able to do well on the exam for
There
sure.
you go.
Okay. Had a great question from Tom. Tom, thanks for joining. He said he joined late, but he was asking, does the ICF offer training?
No, we're
I
not
know the answer, but
no.
yeah.
And that's another requirement. You cannot offer training and have a credentialing program. Those, there's two separations there that, that have to be completely. Yeah, we don't offer training. We're not in the training space.
Yep. So that's why what they do is they accredit coaching programs and they credential individual coaches. So you got to get one from somewhere and then you can go there. And as long as you're going through an accredited program, then it'll pretty much set you up for success to get to those next levels for sure. Okay.
And I got one more thing to say, going back to the exam. There's 80, it's right here in front of me, 81 situational judgment items. It's scenario based, and you pick one correct best action and one correct worst action. So 81 situational questions, if you will. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question, and this is about therapy. Okay.
Oh boy. Okay.
I know. I am not diagnosing, but the whole approach and results are therapeutic. I do not suggest any drugs, but may use my regression without actual hypnosis submergence. So question, where is the waterline between therapy and coaching if psychosomatics always in place and people get to feel much better?
Yeah, I would have you direct that to our credentialing staff. I don't want to get specific here to have their opinion on that. I don't want to just speak out of turn and not have them respond, since they're working on this on a daily basis. And I can put our contact information in the chat.
I love
for
it.
that.
And it also looks like Jess put a blog post in there for Irina to take a look at.
Oh,
so
good.
That should be able to help her as well with that perspective.
Excellent. Excellent.
Now, this is a really great question that we get all the time too. What constitutes paid hours? Is it based on price per session, or could you exchange services with another coach, such as bartering, to get the paid hours?
Yes,
how do you
can.
determine, how much to charge to meet the requirements of the paid hours?
So the paid hours are up to you in terms of what to charge. In terms of the bartered coaching, yes, you can do bartered coaching, and that will count as paid hours as well. A lot of people do it. Actually, we have a service. It's a third-party vendor. They're not. They're only doing this as a service to us that does what we call pure coaching, and it's pretty a nominal fee to belong to that, to get those paid hours. And what else am I missing there? No, I think that's about it.
I have a question that we get a lot as admissions coaches. If somebody is working as an internal coach, where they're getting paid for coaching as part of their salary, how does the ICF ask them to log that?
So there's a couple different ways, and I don't, again, want to misquote anything about the experience hours and here, but there is a way to do it. And you cannot be coaching a subordinate and counting that as paid coaching. Learn about experience requirements, and so that would be internal coaching. It does exist. So it's so you can do it, and you just cannot coach and count hours of coaching direct reports. But otherwise, you can count those hours as paid hours. Yes.
I always just say, you know what, you may want to check with the ICF to see how they want you to log them.
And it's in there. It's called internal coaching. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, and I know we're just getting to the bottom of the hour, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to thank everybody for joining us. And if anybody does have any specific questions for Don, you can reach out to him at don.whittle@coachingfederation.org.
Excellent.
you would like to reach out to IPEC and maybe schedule some time with one of our admissions coaches or even one of our admissions assistants, we're going to put something in the blog, like in the chat right now. Jess is putting that up for us, and you'll be able to get a hold of us through that way. There's even scheduled calendars where you can book some time with admissions coaches. And for everyone that's joined and for everyone that registered that couldn't join, you'll be getting an email follow-up that has a recording of the call. So if you missed anything, you'll have a chance to go ahead and review it. Don, thank you so much for taking the time to join us again today.
Thanks, Grace. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.